Hey, this is Doc Yates, and welcome to the Simply Health podcast brought to you by Able Health. In today's podcast, we are going to focus on, as always, with regards to perimenopause, but we're a little bit of a sidetrack because we're talking about osteoarthritis. And this is something that definitely becomes more prevalent during the time of, 40s, 50s, 60s going forward. So we're going to talk about osteoarthritis for all my perimenopausal and menopausal patients. Typically speaking, when this becomes an issue, the main treatment that you're going to see is just given painkillers and told to exercise more. But exercise hurts, though it may make it better. So I want to discuss 5 of the major factors that I find that plays a big role. And I've seen this in practice for, like 10, 15 years I've been working with osteoarthritis. So I'd like to share some of this experience with you. So the order I'm going to present these to is the order in which I now treat it as well, because I find that these 5 things, when you treat them in the right order, you'll see better response. For instance, a lot of times people with pain and stiffness, they'll go to massage therapy or chiropractor or osteopath or acupuncture, and then they get the results, but it only lasts like 24, 36 hours, and then all of a sudden the pain comes back because it wasn't necessarily done in the right order. So point number 1, and a lot of people don't make this connection, but it's cutting out inflammatory foods. So food sensitivities and inflammatory foods. That's by far the most important thing to do is I'll give you some examples. High sugar foods like white sugar, a lot of white flours, people sensitive with nightshades. So the elimination diet or a hypoallergenic or anti-inflammatory diet, it comes with many names. And some variants between them, but that is the most important thing to do to start with. Generally speaking, for a mild to moderate case of osteoarthritis, anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks is when you really start to see the pain and inflammation reduced just from the diet alone. But you can speed that up by going to these next few points, which is point number 2. Besides cutting out the inflammatory foods, you want to increase natural anti-inflammatories. So this you see people jump to sometimes off the start for their first treatment. It should be the second thing or in addition. So things like the turmeric extracts, the boswellia extracts, the ginger extracts, corydalis, devil's claw, cat's claw, all of those. And then something for muscle tension, something like magnesium should be involved in part of it too. So those would be the second thing that you would do. And you can still give them on the first visit, but that's point number 2. The third aspect, which is the structural support, is something I don't even bother really doing much of until they've been on the diet and the natural anti-inflammatories for at least 2 weeks. And when you get that done, then you will see the effects of the structural treatments lasting longer. So acupuncture, osteopath, more in-depth type stretching, Pilates, yoga, that you'll get a better response from after. So you need to reduce the inflammation with cutting out inflammatory foods, adding in natural anti-inflammatories. So that's the physiological side. Then we have the structural side, which is and when it comes to structure, I like acupuncture. It's one of my favorites because you can use it for small joints like hands as well. But the big things you want to focus on the joints, and in general, you need to focus down along the spine, hips, rib alignment. And when you get those done, you'll notice the other joints improve along with it. The fourth point, this is more of like a traditional like hydrotherapy technique, but I do find it very helpful for osteoarthritis, is anything that induces heating and sweating, besides just the temporary benefit of feeling better. When you've already incorporated these other factors, then you'll see it loosens up the muscles that much more and reduces the stiffness within the joint. And then the fifth thing, which is if you go to a health food store, they give you as the first thing, that's the joint support supplements. So those things like glucosamine, chondroitin, MSM, eggshell membrane, all of those things. There's a lot of times people take those and like, it doesn't work. Well, it's because it doesn't reduce the inflammation. It doesn't correct the structural, like if there's any alignment issues, but it's still a helpful part in the cases. There's a lot of times, to be honest, I find that I don't even have to add like the fourth and the fifth point. You get the first 3 done and people are feeling better, but in some cases you have to add in a little bit of the heating techniques and the joint support. And if you do those, you will almost always see improvement. I've seen cases where they've been pretty much scheduled for surgery for knee replacements, and they've been able to put them off for years and feel good for years because they were very diligent in following this program. So just to review, we have the cutting out the cutting out the inflammatory foods, increasing the anti-inflammatories and things for relieving tension from a natural standpoint, as opposed to using the Tylenol, the aspirin, the naproxen, working with the structural support and alignment, heating and inducing sweating, and number 5, joint support or cartilage support remedies. So that is everything that most cases of osteoarthritis you're going to need to address it. So I hope this was helpful, and this is Doc Yates signing off.